Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, I've done one of these type of videos before, it must be going back about probably even 3 months ago now, and it's a little bit of a longer style video and it's not really made to watch. I'm not going to have any facts or figures up on the screen. It's a long talk about Pokemon investing. One of my favorite things to do is, especially if I'm driving, it's great to rock out to some bands sometimes and listen to some music, but you know what? Sometimes it's just nice to put a podcast on and actually do some thinking and reflecting and learning and, listen to someone else's craft. That's one of the great things I love doing, is listening to someone else's craft, someone that really, really knows what they're talking about. There's been some great podcasts that I've been listening to lately. So I just put on a drive. If I've got to drive back from somewhere and it's a 2-hour drive or an hour drive, just put a podcast on and, sort of listen to someone that can talk about their craft. But before we get into this talk about Pokemon investing, I just want to say I've just opened my first 151. I only opened a 3-pack poster collection, hence you'll probably see the poster chilling up on the wall here as part of the new display sort of setup. And, it's cool. I was happy to buy that because I wanted some sort of backdrop so we're not just looking at white. But 3 packs inside there. I haven't even looked up the prices of these. I imagine, just going off, and I'll try and get it as close as I can, but the Blastoise EX, I imagine that card goes for all of maybe, I don't know, $8 or $10 at the moment, and it's probably going to get a bit cheaper as time goes by. It's probably going to become a $5 or a $4 or a $2.99 Australian dollars. I'm talking card pretty quickly. And actually had a bit of luck. Pulled I presume, just a standard illustration rare in the Tangela there. Obviously not a Tangela, not a fan favorite Pokemon, but in the same vein, it's a cool looking card. Some serious print lines going on in it though, unless that's part of the artwork. But no, it looks like some serious print lines in that foil pattern. But anyway, 3 booster packs, 2 hits, plus a poster to go up on the wall. So happy days. Anyway, let's start getting into it. So you don't need to watch. Set the phone up on speaker. Attach it to your Bluetooth in your car. Let it roll on the TV while you're doing a bit of housework maybe, or the dishes, or cooking dinner, whatever it might be, because this is going to be a little bit of a longer style. So tune in, relax, set the headphones in if you need to, if you're going for a walk, and let's start talking about Pokemon investing. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on before we even get into the whole Pokemon investing side, and you've probably heard this a million times from a million different places over the last probably 12 months, is just the state of the economic landscape. We've seen a crazy, if not some of the craziest 3 years on record. We've obviously been hit by one of the worst sort of health effects or impacts the world's ever seen in a long, long time. Really, really sad situation that COVID was. We've seen losses of liberties where people have seen loss of lives, which are even worse. But, from an economic standpoint, it's meant that, and I'm talking from the business that I work pretty closely in, we had to let go of 20% of our staff. We weren't selling anything. The doors were about to shut. Assets were being listed for sale, and, we didn't quite know where things were going until, the government here in Australia, that is, brought out some, I suppose, stimuluses to the economy, whether that be in the cash handout phase to individuals, stimulus checks, so to speak, whether it be an increase in America, you call them probably social security payments. For here, we sort of call them, I suppose, job seeker payments, where people are looking for work, we're getting paid more money. We saw things like instant asset write-offs, where if you purchased an asset, you could, claim the full depreciation within the first financial year. So, we saw some serious stimulation to the economy, like lots of money spent to stimulate the economy. And that meant, a lot of things. We also saw massive drops in interest rates to make sure people still, keep spending money and building houses and buying assets and buying businesses and buying cars and buying tractors and buying farming equipment and everything else in between to try and stimulate the economy, keep jobs going, and just, keep everything afloat. And little did we know that the pendulum would probably swing a very long way the other direction, that we just now got hit with this massive amount of inflation. So the economy's seen a huge turmoil, from a massive rise where, share prices and businesses went through the roof, even things like collectibles, of course, Pokemon cards went absolutely through the roof as well, to probably a bit of a lull for probably the last sort of 9 months of 2023. So, I guess when we translate that to the state of the play, where is Pokemon cards, in particular Pokemon cards investing, sitting in Q4 2023? You could probably argue somewhat strongly that it's sitting in a bit of a lull. And, this has been voiced from, and maybe quite strongly, by some pretty big Pokemon YouTubers, that the investing space is in a little bit of a lull. Now, my argument, which I'll get to more towards the end of this video, is to certainly not be alarmed by that. Like, do not be alarmed in any way, shape, or form. You've got to take the good with the bad. You've got to swing the punches. You've got to take the hits. Like, that's just part and parcel of business. Things aren't always going to be great. And if you have the expectation that they are, you're sort of probably going to be fairly disappointed. So where is it sitting? Okay, let's say it's sitting in a lull. And, that's, like I've said before, that's probably a pretty fair statement. I've done videos recently looking at booster boxes and elite trainer boxes and singles prices over the last sort of 9 months. And most sets, particularly if we're looking at, say, Sword and Shield era sets, haven't seemed to have moved a great deal. You've got to remember, though, that even though they haven't moved a great deal, and we'll get sort of towards this a little bit more at the end of the video, that, supply is still dwindling. Like, over time, yes, a lot of product changes hands from sealed collector to sealed collector, but things are still being opened. And eventually supply is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So yes, we may be sitting in a lull, and that may be the state of the play for Q4 2023. But still today, I can guarantee you, somewhere in the world, Vivid Voltage booster boxes are being cracked. Somewhere in the world, Darkness Ablaze booster boxes are being cracked. Somewhere in the world, Chilling Reign English booster boxes are being cracked. Probably tens of them, probably hundreds of them. So don't be alarmed. Supply on your product that you're holding will slowly get shorter and shorter as the days go by. Sounds like I'm singing a Daryl Braithwaite song there. As the days go by, the supply of your product will get shorter and shorter. Now, on that, I mentioned maybe a few YouTubers bringing up the state of the play, and I guess maybe there's been a touch of controversy regarding the Pokemon card investing scene over the last little while as well, particularly the last 3 years, and none more so than scalpers. And we all know what that means. And if you don't know what that means, I'll give a very, very brief synopsis. But obviously, it's essentially someone buying the product so other people can't get their hands on it, and those other people still want the product, so there's still demand for the product, and they sell it on the secondary market for more. And they could do that in the case where they gain some control over the market. And by control, I mean they buy such a large portion of it and there's still more people wanting it, so there's still more demand than there is supply, so they can sell it on the secondary market for more money. And I've said this 100 times, this happens in the car industry as well. When there's a really, really sought after car, we've had people buy cars with no intention to drive them. So they literally drive them out of the showroom and list them for sale on Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace or car sales here in Australia and sell them for more money. And in some cases, make themselves quite a hefty profit, like Land Cruiser 300 series at the start, 10 grand. Land Cruiser 200 series towards the end of its run, 30 grand. Like, there is people doing that in the Pokemon card world where they were buying Celebrations Ultra Premium Collections with bots online at $200 and selling them for $300 the next day. Like, simple, easy, done, quick money. That is hopefully gone. So there's been some controversy that there's never been in the past. Like, that just hasn't happened before. Now, some of the other controversies more recently, particularly in regards to, say, YouTubers like Danny Phantom, making commentary around Pokemon card investing that certainly wasn't derogatory, but it was almost the whole vibe of the video. And I certainly respect the guy and I appreciate everything he does for the community, but the whole vibe around the video was, it felt like there was this slightly negative connotation that collecting something like a Pokemon card booster box and selling it for more money down the track isn't allowed, like it's not quite okay, or it doesn't quite sit well on everyone's moral compass. And, you know, like, why? I don't really understand that argument, because you can go and buy a property which takes your capital, like it's your money, you're the one going in with the risk, just like Pokemon card investing, it's your capital and your money you're putting in and your risk. You could put the, I don't know, $800 you're paying for a Cosmic Eclipse booster box off your mortgage, but it's our risk, or the Pokemon community's risk as an investment group, to plant their money in that space. That could go to zero. You could lose all $800. It's all okay if people lose money, but it's not okay if they make money. Like it didn't. I wouldn't say it didn't sit well with me, because I don't really care that much, but this whole notion that it's not okay to make money, and the same thing happened in the car world, where, you know, people were buying cars and selling them for more, and, you know, I don't really care. It doesn't affect me. Yeah, it sort of sucks for people that wanted it, but I don't know. Sometimes it's a bit of a dog eat dog world sometimes. Like, maybe other people could have been a bit smarter and taken advantage of it themselves. I don't know. Like, we've got to remember, it is a bit of a dog eat dog world, and not everyone's going to play by the rules that you want them to play by. So you've got to keep that in mind, that it's our money, so to speak, that's at risk. And it's perfectly fine for someone to, you know, buy a house and in 10 years' time sell it for $200,000 profit. Like, that's okay, great work. You've also maybe, you know, rented the house out for that time and kept someone out of the buying market because you're an investor. So, like, is that okay if you're a landlord versus that whole landlord versus tenant debate? Like, it's this constant sort of power battle, and it's like, well, you know, sometimes you've just got to let the people taking the risk take the risk. And in Pokemon card world, like, we've all taken risks, and, you know, we've all bought Vivid Voltage booster boxes and made no money over the last 3 years. We've also probably all bought Evolving Skies booster boxes and 4x'd our money over the last 2 years. Like, it comes with risks. You take the good with the bad, like I said. Now, with controversies out of the way, there's something else that's out of the way, and that is the whole Sword and Shield era. It is over. And it feels quite disappointing, because it ended with such a massive bang. We obviously had Crown Zenith, which arguably, alongside its Japanese counterpart V-Star Universe, was one of the nicest Pokemon card sets ever created. And if you want my opinion on it, because I get asked a lot, V-Star Universe is a stronger Pokemon card set than Crown Zenith. If you have some money to park in, here's a little bit of investment advice. Invest it in V-Star Universe over Crown Zenith. I think, you know, just the quality control, the feel of the cards, arguably the smaller print run, and the growing demand for Japanese Pokemon cards in the English market, like, it's only going to mean good things. It's it's the final high-class Sword and Shield Japanese set. Like, it just goes tick, 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 hopefully boom, as Will Smith said, you know, towards the next couple of years. It should go, and by boom, I mean, you know, hopefully to the moon, because I don't know, I'm not a massive Japanese collector. I invest in Japanese sets that I think are going to go well. And I've got a couple of V-Star Universe, and of course jumped on the bandwagon for Japanese 151. But let's wind back to what I was saying, which was talking about Sword and Shield being over. So we obviously ended with a bang on Crown Zenith, the final set for Sword and Shield. We started with this epic run from Brilliant Stars onwards, which encapsulated not only this new alt art era from Sword and Shield, which took off from the final sets of Sun and Moon, which had some tag team alt art cards. It introduced a whole new vibe to Pokemon cards. And, you know, some people probably feel like, you know, alt arts, or there was a fair bit of commentary around the fact that alt arts are the new gold stars. Like, we haven't seen something so special since Gold Star cards, or something so different since Gold Star cards. And from Brilliant Stars onwards, not only did we get the factor of alt art cards, we got this double whammy of trainer galleries. And we wind back to the last set that did that, and that was Cosmic Eclipse. And look how strongly Cosmic Eclipse is performing. Now, arguably, that didn't really get a reprint. Everyone thought it was going to, and it just didn't seem to get one. So print run, like we've talked about several times before, is going to make huge impact on the future resale rating or the future growth of your sealed product. But we've come off the back of a massive high, which is the sword and shield era. And you know what? I still will stand by this statement and say it 100 times over. If you've got money to invest, don't invest it now into Scarlet and Violet sets. Invest it into Sword and Shield, Old Art Trainer Gallery sets. They are just bang, bang, double whammy. Like, a lot of them had 40 to 45% hit rates from opening a pack. Now, that doesn't always mean you're going to get an Old Art, of course, and that's what was so good about them. It might have meant an EX card, or it might have meant a Full Art card, or it might have meant a Trainer Gallery card, or it might have meant an Old Art card. But you had this massive discrepancy between, you've still got these huge chase cards, the Old Arts, which are just Hollywood, but you know, it was still fun to open packs because you could pull a really nice Trainer Gallery card and just go, yeah, you know what, the artwork on that is super sweet. So I really liked the balance they got there in those final Sword and Shield sets. So my advice is, yes, Sword and Shield is over, but we can still pick up booster boxes at a good price. Now, are they going to do what Cosmic Eclipse did? I don't think so. They've been printed way too much for that. But you know what? They should stand the test of time. It was still at its absolute popularity. And the old saying, yes, there was heaps of supply printed, but if something was popular new, it's going to be popular secondhand. Now, speaking about Alt Arts and Sword and Shield Alt Arts and being the next Gold Star card, there's this weird sort of thing, for lack of a better word, going on with Alt Arts still, in that, you know, they're just dropping. Like, they're dropping still in price. Old Art Charizard from Brilliant Stars is still dropping in price. Lugia V Old Art from Silver Tempest is still dropping in price. And you know what? It sort of frustrates me because they're such beautiful cards and I feel like personally they're worth the money. But you know what? What other markets aren't dropping in price? Shares are dropping in price. The used car market's dropping in price by 15% or 20% on some vehicles. House pricing is finally coming back to earth. So it's like the whole market, not just Pokemon cards, is having this absolute massive correction to, you know, from a place of an all-time high to maybe a place where it is more realistic and it should sit. So I think once a card finds the bottom of the market, once we see these trend lines starting to flatten out, you probably might go, hey, look, the market's found some sort of equilibrium on these Sword and Shield Old Arts, and it's probably about the lowest it's going to get. And you know what? That's probably not a bad time to pick these up. Adversely, if we look at booster boxes, yes, there's been some lulls in some of them, like Vivid Voltage and Darkness Ablaze, and I know they're not Alt Art Trainer Gallery sets like I was talking about, but what's funny is even when everything else is dipping, used cars are pulling back to earth, the property market's pulling back to earth, shares and companies, everything's pulling back to earth. Interest rates are going up. Everything's getting dearer for you know, your everyday essentials, and therefore, you know, assets are sort of dropping in price. What's funny is the booster boxes still stay stable. It just sort of amazes me, I guess. And speaking of sets and I suppose overprinting, that's probably what I wanted to have a little bit of a chat about next, and that is the printers that are still running hot. Now, I have done a video on the printers running hot and talking about how many cards are being printed, and it is just mind-boggling how many English Pokemon cards are being printed. Like, it is astonishing. It's like we've never seen the printers run this hot. Like, I forget the stats, but it was something stupid, like 50% of all Pokemon cards ever printed have been printed in the last 2 years. Like, that just, it blows your mind, doesn't it? So the printers are still running very hot, which leads us into what's happening with Scarlet and Violet, and this sort of feel that Scarlet and Violet isn't at the same level as Sword and Shield and not quite as popular. And luckily, I think, in Scarlet and Violet's defense, we've had a set like the beautiful 151 come out, which, in my opinion, has well and truly saved Scarlet and Violet. You know what? It's so hard. Is is it that Scarlet and Violet isn't as good as Sword and Shield? Or is it just that our expectations are so damn high? Because if you look back throughout all of Pokemon card history and you look at some of the older sets, like your chase card in the past was a regular holo, like a holo Zapdos or a holo Moltres or a holo Charizard. That was your chase card. And then, okay, we introduced some Gold Stars, which were phenomenal, and the Pokemon was coming out of the border. Then we introduced, some secret rares, which had gold bordering, like when we get into Black and White era. We had the Prime cards from Heart Gold, Soul Silver. We had these funky, crazy-looking full art cards from XY era with Japanese writing, which just, to me, just hits my eyes, and I don't find it aesthetically pleasing. Some people love them, but I just go, whoa, there's a lot going on in those cards, and I just didn't quite like it. To some beautiful old art tag team cards in Sun and Moon era, to some amazing alternate art cards in Sword and Shield era, and the reintroduction of Trainer Gallery, to this new illustration rare where Pokemon seem to be cruising around in the natural environment. And you know what? Like, compare that to any other era, and it actually looks phenomenal. Look at the artwork inside the card. Every single card seems to paint some sort of a picture. I mean, this Tangela card that I bought up at the start of the video, like, it's like there's two mates and one of them's made his own seesaw or like swing set, and he's just swinging from the branches, and, just every single artwork, sort of tells some sort of a story, and it sort of makes me think, are we just getting too harsh? Like, how good do they have to be for us to go, you know what, hats off, well done, like we did during the Sword and Shield old art era? Because the more I look at Scarlet and Violet, and especially if I compare it to the early Sword and Shield sets, it well and truly trumps it. It is heaps better. And not just by a little bit, but by a lot. And by a lot, I mean a lot. So, ask yourself that. Are our expectations just too high? Does Scarlet and Violet deserve the sort of criticism that maybe people are giving it? Because I really don't think it does. And if anything, 151 has just smashed everything out of the water. The amount of people that have come back to the hobby, I know we could argue, the only way Pokemon can boost sales now is to rely on the original 151. It's got to bring back nostalgia. It's got to do this. It's got to do that. But, hats off to them. Like, it's a business, and businesses need to make money. Yeah, they're probably making truckloads of it, but it's just a fact. Like, it's a business, and they deserve to try their best to make money, just like anyone else in business. And that leads me on to the point that, like, I think it's all going to be okay. There's been some, I suppose, like we said at the start of the video, some stress around, Q4 and some lulls in the market. And, you can't buy a booster box anymore, and it's 3xing its value in 2 years or 4xing its value in 2 years, like Evolving Skies did. When's the next set like that coming out? Pokemon investing's dead in the water. It's okay, it's okay is what I want to say. What we've seen over the last 3 years is an incredibly extraordinary time. Like, I remember back to 2008 during the global financial crisis, or 2009, 2010, I was still able to buy EX cases, and I thought it was a good move, buying EX cases, opening the packs, selling the cards on eBay, making a bit of money. If only I'd kept them sealed, hey? If only. Like, EX Holland Phantom booster cases, so 6 booster boxes, like 1,400 Australian dollars, 1,200 Australian dollars in some cases, like $200 a booster box. Yes, they're only 3 or 4 years old, but that was still the going price. And you could sell off Gold Star cards for, I don't know, you thought you were Hollywood. You opened a $1,200 booster case and, 6 boxes, and you pulled $1,500 worth of cards, and you sold the singles, and you made $300 profit after postage and shipping. You thought, what a beautiful exercise. That was so much fun. We didn't have the cameras and the flashing lights and YouTube to show it off on. Well, we probably did have YouTube back then, but I wasn't clever enough to think of using it. I wish I had. But, you know, now there's just this whole extra landscape and so many people in the hobby that can display that sort of thing. But my point is, it's okay. Like, we've been through lulls. We've been through global financial crises. We've been through massive lulls in the Pokemon hobby. Take yourself forward even further to 2016, XY Evolutions, which was printed to the absolute ground thanks to Pokemon Go. This massive craze where people were cruising all around the countryside, through cities, stopping traffic, doing this, doing that, catching Snorlaxes in Singapore or whatever it might be, and just brought about this craze back for Pokemon where something like an XY Evolutions, which was a throwback to base set, got absolutely printed to the ground, and there was still stock a year later, like overstocked a year later, and stores couldn't sell it. They couldn't get in new sets because it was just, there was too much supply in the market. And look at it now. Look at it now. XY Evolutions in Australia is probably, I don't know, $800, $1,000 a booster box. So my point is, it'll be okay. Even if you think a Darkness Ablaze booster box has absolutely been printed to the ground and you paid $100 because things were pretty dear back then and it felt like supply was shorter, or maybe it was just a mirage from the Pokemon company to make you buy it. But maybe you paid $100 for a Darkness Ablaze booster box. I can guarantee you that will get to $200 a booster box one day. It just will. Like, it will. It's okay. If you bought a $100,000 block of land and it took you 7 years to turn it into $200,000 block of land, you'd be pretty damn happy. Like, very happy. So if your Darkness Ablaze booster box does it in 5 years, which it might well do, you'd be over the moon. If your block of land did it in 5 years, you'd be well and truly over the moon. And you know what? When you sell your block of land, you've got to pay capital gains tax on it. You don't pay capital gains tax on collectibles here in Australia. Yes, you've got all the rigmarole of selling heaps of boxes. My point is, it will be okay. Things will still go up. Time will deplete supply. Demand will still be there. The hobby is still strong. Printers are still printing. People are still buying. It will be okay. Where to from here? No one knows. That's crystal ball stuff. My advice, though, keep buying Sword and Shield, old art, trainer gallery sets. They are Hollywood. That's just a little saying me and my mates have. Like, you hit a good golf shot, oh, that was Hollywood, mate. So what I mean is, they're damn good Pokemon card sets. Focus on the sets that you know are good sets. Scarlet and Violet 151, Japanese 151, V-Star Universe, Sword and Shield old art trainer gallery sets. Park your money there from an investment point of view. If you love collecting, go ahead, buy all the Elite Trainer boxes to collect and make a beautiful display like I try and do. But I guess that sort of summarises the video. I'm Michael. This is PokeOz. I'll catch everyone next time. Keep investing.